William Fox.
Speaker, can I say that, unlike the bizarre and perverse worldview expressed by the SNP benches in the previous speech, I very much welcome, as a tonic, the enthusiasm, the innovation and creativity that my Right Honourable Friend, the Secretary of State, has brought to his brief and exhibited today. Of course, the success of policy on housing is dependent on balancing two elements. The first is encouraging home ownership to provide stability and security in the way that many of us have been able to enjoy, but too many young people are not yet able to enjoy. And that needs to be balanced against the interests of existing communities, where houses are built so that we do not have overstretch of infrastructure such as healthcare and education, where visual amenity and quality of life is not unduly damaged, and where we are able to create more jobs where housing is being built, so that we do not continue to have commuter towns with all the disbenefits that they have had and seen in recent decades. I, as part of my view of conservatism, have always had an indispensable view about the value of green belt. And I am pleased to see that the Secretary of State is giving great emphasis to the maintenance of Greenbelt. It was there for a purpose. It is there to stop urban sprawl and to stop concreting over of our countryside. And once it is gone forever. And it's therefore our duty to protect it for future generations, rather than giving in to short-term interests in one way or another. And it's tied up with this concept that the housing targets set by the government are not instructions to build. They are targets, and they are targets that need to be netted off against other interests that the government may have set out. For example, Greenbelt. For example, not wanting to build on floodplains. For example, not damaging our areas of outstanding natural beauty. They are difficult balances to get, and they're always controversial in any one area. And I say this as the Secretary of State knows. We have many of these difficulties in my part of North Somerset, a part of the country that's well away from the NIMBY part of the spectrum. In fact, as the new Boundary Commission is likely to show, many of my constituents, because of the rise in our population, will be represented in constituencies outside North Somerset. But it's very important, I think, to point out to district councils that the government's targets being set are not an excuse for them to try to build on green belt, because that is, I'm afraid, what some of them are attempting to do. Now, I think that the government's plans on the housing numbers have to be seen alongside some of the other elements of policy and the levelling up agenda of the government. The regeneration of some of our great cities, particularly in the northern part of England, will stop the drift of people to the south of England, adding to the pressure on housing. The ability to get greater regeneration in terms of jobs in that part of the country will enable people to stay and have the sort of careers that they have otherwise only been able to get by moving closer to London. We have got to stop being a London-centric country when it comes to our planning system, and I very much welcome that, as do I welcome the opening up of competition in the house-building sector. Far too much power lies in the hands of the oligopoly in this country, and we need to see far more smaller companies coming into that sector if we are to see the sort of improvements many of us want to see. Of course, we've still got to deal with the issue of cladding. The £5.1 billion set aside by the government is a very large amount of money, particularly in the current fiscal circumstances, and I would caution my colleagues who think that they will be able to get substantially more money coming from the Treasury. What we have to do is to ensure that we get the end of forfeiture, which is why I welcome the leasehold reform. We need to ensure that the cost falls in the appropriate place, not on leaseholders, and that we don't absolve developers and builders of their responsibility to put right the mistakes that they created. We must ensure that taxpayers' money is only spent where it is absolutely necessary, and we must ensure that the taxpayers are not ripped off by putting right things through public money that should be put right through the private money of the developers. I welcome my Right Honourable friend's commitment to look at Portishead in my constituency as an example of many of these issues. I look forward to welcoming him or his officials, as many of them as like to come down. But I end with a word of warning, Mr Deputy Speaker, at the risk of presenting myself as an unreconstructed fiscal conservative. Money is going to be very tight. The effect of QE, as set out by the OBR, means that we are very vulnerable to rises in interest rates as a country, and we must therefore limit the way in which we seem to be splashing money in every single direction. We need to return to sound money, fiscal conservatism, because we need to conserve the opportunities for the future by not landing the next generation in undue debt.